Coming up on today's program, I'm going to be analyzing and grading a $3.1 million portfolio for EA. This is a married couple in their 50s, and we're going to be analyzing their investments in a couple of key areas like cost, risk, taxes, diversification, and performance. And we're going to give them a final grade of A, B, C, D, or F, so stay tuned for that. They've got 5 to 7 years to go before retiring. Do they pass or do they fail? We are going to delve into all the intimate details on today's show. Hi there, everybody. I'm DeLegge with ETF Guide and founder of the Portfolio Report Card. If you're new to the show, I'd like to welcome you. It's great to have you with us. And this is the place where we congregate every week to talk about the birds and the bees of profitable investing. And this is where we also analyze and grade your portfolio. We tell you the architectural strengths and weaknesses of your investments in key areas. Now, before we get into the portfolio report card for EA, I want to give you a couple of tips on why it's so important to be sober. Understand that chasing the historical performance of hot-performing stocks, mutual funds, or ETFs mostly leads to disappointing results. Be very careful about the accuracy of Wall Street's predictions, because it's not very reliable, as we've seen from history, nor should it be used to make any investment decisions of any kind. Be sober. And finally, run away from any phony promises of smooth, easy, or high returns with no risk. So that's my tip on today's show for being sober. Now let's get back to EA's portfolio, because we need to grade this investment account, and it's made up of multiple accounts. We're going to look at that in a second. We're going to analyze this portfolio in a couple of key areas, as I mentioned. Those areas are going to be cost, risk, performance, taxes, diversification. We're not going to look at organization or behavior, because we're just going to focus on 5 grading categories. That's what EA asked for. And so we're going to give them a final grade, though, of A, B, C, D, or F on today's show. And that's going to be how we roll. Of course, A or B is the best score. C, D, or F are not good scores. So we're going to get into all the specifics of this portfolio. Keep in mind, the report card, as I designed it, is always one page. This is actually what you get when you request a portfolio report card. Besides the wonderful chance of maybe getting featured on this show, this report card, as I designed it, works on all size portfolios from as low as $25,000 up to $10 billion. And again, it's always on one page. Keep in mind your first grade, or your first report card, is what we call your baseline grade. And we use that to tell us, when it comes to future grades, if you're making progress or not. And of course, I analyze and grade all types of portfolios, self-managed, along with advisor-managed portfolios. So now we've got EA's portfolio. This is a $3.1 million portfolio combined value. It consists of 2 401k plans, a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, a joint brokerage account, an ESPP. That's an acronym for an Employee Stock Purchase Program. And he's in the software business. She's in the financial services industry. And they're pretty good savers. Just looking at this just from the outset, they consider themselves, too, by the way, moderate risk takers. So we're going to see if this portfolio matches up and aligns with that description. Let's begin with the first. Oh, by the way, some of the concerns that they have, and there's just pretty much one concern, is market risk. So when they came to me and they asked for a report card, this was the big one. And so we're going to take a look and see if this portfolio passes the muster when it comes to that category. So EA's portfolio has 23 mutual funds, 6 stocks, and 3 ETFs. And as I mentioned earlier, it's scattered across all these different accounts, these 401ks and traditional IRA, employee stock purchase program, and so forth. The biggest holding, of course, among this total or combined portfolio is the Adobe, which is just over $1.7 million. That's the ESPP. Then you've got some Vanguard funds, not really even close in size compared to that position in Adobe stock. And you can see those Vanguard funds targeting different areas, balanced funds, which own a combination of stocks and bonds. You've got an all-U.S. stock fund, that VIIX, that targets the S&P 500, that's institutional share class. And then, of course, another fund that tracks U.S. mid-caps and some of those smaller cap stocks, VIEIX. But these are the top holdings, so I just want to just give you some context as we get into this report card. Now, the first grading category is cost, and VEA owns mostly Vanguard funds. A few of them are super low cost institutional share class, and that's good for this grading category. Keep in mind the portfolio report card grading engine calculates the cost of your portfolio against a custom benchmark that aligns with your portfolio's asset mix. So it gives us a better perspective on whether your portfolio costs too much or not. And EA's portfolio does great. It costs just 0.11%, that's 11 basis points annually, which is excellent compared to the benchmark. Also, I found no evidence of other hidden costs in the portfolio. We looked for that. I didn't see any excessive trading that could lift expenses higher. So good start for EA in terms of cost. Next grading category is diversification. EA's portfolio, if we look at it, has exposure to stocks, bonds, and cash. Those are three major asset classes. However, it misses exposure to two major asset classes. You'll notice no exposure to commodities or to real estate. And even though these have been poor performers in 2020, that does not diminish the importance of them in a diversified portfolio. And so EA comes up a little bit short. The other thing, too, is that equity exposure, that 92% stocks, over half of that position alone is committed to Adobe. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the next grading category, which is risk. So as we said at the outset, risk is an important factor. And the reason we say it is because your investment portfolio from a risk character perspective should align perfectly with your risk profile as an investor, your risk tolerance. And so EA describes himself as a balanced investor or moderate risk investor. But if you take a look at the portfolio, it doesn't really match up with that description because this is a very high risk portfolio with 92% exposure to stocks and more than half of that, again, half of that alone, or I should say half of the $3 million portfolio, over half, is committed just to one stock, Adobe. And also you'll notice that 1% cash position, not much of a cushion or margin of safety. That's way too low, especially for someone that's 5 to 7 years away from retirement. So how would this portfolio do in a bear market? Probably not very well. And I can easily see a situation where the current allocation with this portfolio gets cut in half or more. And that's problematic for EA, especially being so close to retirement. So I see a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of risk. This was one of their primary concerns. So it's good that we're talking about it. Now, the next grading category is taxes. This reminds me of an old joke. What's the difference between death and taxes? Death doesn't get worse every time Congress meets. That's a good one, isn't it? So how does EA do in terms of taxes and specifically minimizing taxes? So if we take a look at their asset positioning in terms of the overall, how the assets are distributed with this $3 million portfolio, the bulk of it is in the taxable account with the employee stock purchase program. And then the rest is in the tax deferred bucket, the IRAs, traditional IRAs, the 401k plans. There's a traditional 401k and there's also a solo 401k in there. Got about $1.2 million. And then you'll notice the tax-free bucket, which is Roth IRA, Roth 401k. They got just under $150,000 there. So think about this. The two least favorable buckets from a tax perspective, the taxable and tax deferred, that's where they've got the most money. Meanwhile, the bucket that has the most favorable tax treatment is where they have the least amount of money. So they've got some work to do in terms of taxes. I see a massive imbalance here in terms of their asset positioning. And think about this from this perspective. I always look at what would this portfolio look like from a tax perspective in retirement, because this is very important, and this is something that a lot of people miss, and even financial advisors regularly and consistently miss. So if we take a look at this portfolio, what will it be worth? Just the middle bucket, the tax-deferred bucket, that $1.2 million by the time that they're ready to start taking out distributions, RMDs. So let's just say, assuming no further contributions to the tax-deferred bucket, let's assume that this money grows at a 7% rate of return. EA is going to have almost $2.8 million in that bucket, just that middle one, and that is going to have required minimum distributions of around $98,000, which is going to guarantee full taxation on Social Security income, and then that's going to keep rising, because remember, RMDs go up every year, which means the tax burdens go up and rise accordingly. And this is a ticking time bomb, and it's too late to do anything about it once RMDs kick in. And of course, the threat of higher future tax rates, which is a real threat, and that's where things are heading in terms of government spending and all the fiscal obligations that the government has. They're going to have no choice but to raise taxes. And so I see a lot of work to be done from a tax perspective and tax efficiency angle in terms of getting a better handle on this and getting better asset positioning and being diversified too from a tax perspective. I just don't see that right now with EA's current positioning. So it's a good time to start this right now, EA. Not in 10 years. You will not be able to fix this if you just do nothing about it. And then this next slide shows you how each of these buckets has what we call an ideal balance. So you'll notice that number 2 and number 3, the tax-deferred and tax-free bucket, you want to have the ideal balance. You want those RMDs at age 72 to stay at or below your standard deduction, which for married couples, which this is $24,000 and change. So we just talked about RMDs being almost 100 grand. So that's way over and beyond where it should be. So again, this would definitely call for some shifting, getting money into the tax-free zone, and looking at doing Roth contributions as well as Roth conversions. So the final grading category is performance, and the report card grading engine compares your investment performance against a custom benchmark that matches your portfolio's design. And you'll notice EA did very well. This portfolio gained 37% over the past year compared to an 11.7% for the benchmark. So they outperformed by a lot. And so well done, EA. And that hot performance, largely attributable to Adobe. That was the main reason this portfolio did so well. And of course, with over 50% of the overall assets committed to Adobe, that certainly boosted performance in a big way. So good job on performance, but keep in mind that that can also, that can cut the opposite way. When you've got a high-performing asset that takes up a large proportion of your overall portfolio, if it tumbles, well, that could certainly hurt performance in the future. So that's just something to keep in mind with concentrated positions like you have right now in your portfolio, EA. So what's the overall final grade for EA? Well, this portfolio is a C. Some of the strengths that I see in this portfolio, performance was outstanding. They're doing a great job at minimizing cost. However, I see some major weaknesses in terms of diversification, risk, taxes. We got over half of this portfolio concentrated in just one stock, Adobe. It's got poor asset positioning with most of the assets in the taxable and tax-deferred bucket. So we got to get better on that asset positioning, got to have more tax diversification, get more money into the tax-free zone, Roth IRA, Roth 401k. We see also no margin of safety. It's non-existent. So that could become a problem, especially in a market environment where stocks sell off big time and we head into a bear market. we want to have, especially as we get closer to retirement. An EA, they've got another 5 to 7 years. They're right there. They need to get a little bit more defensive and have a larger cushion or margin of safety. Also, what's the deal with people having no written investment plan? A portfolio of this size should definitely have a written investment plan. Really, a portfolio of any size should have a written investment plan, but there's no excuse for not having it. And so some homework assignments for improving EA's future grade: diversify away from that single stock risk, calculate and implement a bigger portion of the overall portfolio to your cushion, or what I call your margin of safety. I have a worksheet that I offer in part of my online classes, so I'll provide a link to that in the bottom of this video. And EA, you can enroll in that class and get that margin of safety worksheet. You'll also get a template for your investment policy statement, so you can just fill in the blanks, and then next time I grade your portfolio, I'll see that you've got a written investment policy statement, and hopefully the portfolio matches up with what's written in that IPS. So these are the types of portfolios I grade: 401ks, IRAs, 403bs, 457 plans, held at these institutions and many more. And so get in touch with me if you'd like me to analyze and grade your portfolio. You get started by going to portfolioreportcard.com. Thank you so much, EA, for taking Ron DeLegge's Portfolio Report Card Challenge. Do your homework. Do not be complacent. And remember that smart asset positioning coupled with smart investment positioning leads to a better built portfolio and a better grade. So what about you? What are your investments? What are your investment portfolio's strengths and weaknesses? Would you like to know? Do you have any hidden problems that could really blow you up? Or do you have a financial advisor who's maybe overcharging you or perhaps under-delivering? You're not sure what exactly the problem is. You can't put your finger on it. Well, it's time for a portfolio report card. I will tell you exactly what is the problem, if there is a problem. And of course, we don't just focus on the problems, we also focus on the strengths, because we want you to build on those strengths, eliminate the weaknesses, and that's the whole point. So the portfolio report card will help you to get to the bottom of it. And please subscribe to this channel. Hopefully you're enjoying our shows. This is a new program. And please post your comments below. And again, get in touch with me by visiting portfolioreportcard.com. I'm Ron DeLegge. Thanks for watching.